My name is Chris Bauer, and I am the director at GM Center of Learning, which is responsible for the dealer and field training for our U.S. operations. I also have global responsibilities for our dealer training within General Motors.
And good morning, I'm Bonnie Beresford with GP Strategies, and I'm a performance consultant partnering with Chris on his journey here, and I am focusing on learning and performance analytics.
Great. Glad that you joined us today. What we wanted to share with you today is a challenge that we faced in our organization about an upcoming attrition that we have with our field organization and how we solve for that and make sure we have a solution that makes sure they're competent and they can perform on day one. We're going to share with you the program itself, and we also have some good measurement results we want to share with you that talk about the impact or the effectiveness of that program. Let me first talk about the people we're talking about. These are our district managers, our field organization. And for many of you, you could think of it as our sales organization or your sales organization. These are the folks that call in the dealer. In our world, we actually sell our vehicles to the dealer who then sell them to customers. And the district manager is that front face working with the dealer on all areas of the operations of the dealership, down to customer issues, to how to help sell more vehicles, how to help sell more service parts, what have you. So they are the tip of the spear for GM when it comes to working with the dealers. The business challenge that we faced or are facing is one of attrition, and many of you may be experiencing this yourself. Our projections about a year ago, or the next 3 or 4 years, we would be expecting about a 38% attrition rate, which is pretty big. And I'd guess right now, actually, we're probably on pace to even eclipse that. So the problem is a little bit bigger, or the challenge is a little bit bigger than we originally had anticipated. So this creates a big challenge for us, Bonnie.
Yeah, you're anticipating needing to onboard over 400 people in the next couple of years.
That's quite a bit, and they have to be ready to go. And being ready to go, and that's the challenge that we faced. We have to ensure that they're competent on day one, that they can come in and do the job at a certain level. But the tension that we have, Bonnie, is that the regions need them now.
Right. They want somebody in that job. There are openings in the job. They know the attrition's coming. They have dealers they have to service, and they want a warm body out there. You want to be sure that they're ready.
Right. And many of you probably experience the same tension in your organization where you want the time to train them, but the organization wants them now. So we experienced that same tension. And that tension drove us to our original solution, which was a 3-month solution, which was basically line up the SMEs, go through the PowerPoint presentations, and just absorb what you can. And Bonnie, how did that work out for us?
Well, we had a district manager, or 3 or 4 or 5 in those early programs, that told us it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was just all this information being poured down their throats, and they, frankly, when they went into the field, they didn't feel ready. And perhaps even worse, their zone managers, their bosses, said these guys aren't ready. And what that did for the dealers was not really a good service to the dealer either. No,
not a good service to the dealer, not to them, the individuals themselves as they prepare to be successful. So bottom line, it wasn't a very successful program. So we had to step back, take a look at where we fell short and how do we address that. So let's start here. So this is where we really fell short, we think, as we looked at the approach to how we were onboarding our people. The first one was speed to launch, and that talks about the tension between having people right now versus having people that are competent. We erred on speed to launch, which was let's get them out there quickly. What we really need to focus on is speed to proficiency. And that's the more important indicator or measure of a successful onboarding program, is the speed to proficiency.
Also, the content was largely driven by internal stakeholders. The executives at General Motors saying this is what our district managers need, as opposed to making it more learner-centric, that we had it driven by the job requirements. In other words, we did an impact map of the entire job to find out, well, what are the requirements in that first year on the job, and design the training to that, as opposed to what somebody at General Motors said they needed to have a career at General Motors. We wanted to be ready for the first job.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other was classroom-based. It was all classroom-based, came in for lecture, a lot of lecture. There were a couple of weeks where they spent time in some dealership at the call center, but by and large, it was heavily classroom-style lecture. We needed to be more contextual and experiential. We wanted them to learn in the context that they're going to be performing their job. That was important, and also to make it very experiential.
And we'll tell you about the context of the job shortly.
Yep.
The SME-centric lecture model, Chris had already said about the death by PowerPoint, and that it was driven by what the SME knew and what he wanted to share as opposed to the job requirements, and making it really about what that learner, what our new district manager needed to know to be successful right out of the gate.
Absolutely. We also focus primarily on tactics. How do you access this report? How do you run this report? How do you do these very tactical things? While that's important, we also need to focus on the strategic. How does your job fit into the bigger picture? What is the role that you play in this organization? And so to shift, not just shift, but include strategic as well as tactics, we really had to expand that as well.
Absolutely. In the first model, they were rather learning on their own, and then I hate to say it, but thrown to the wolves a bit. And we recognized that having a network of people to call on and have, whether it's a peer or an SME, is really critical when you're out in the field talking to a dealer and you run into a problem you've never seen before. Having that network is an incredible thing. And so we designed in intentional opportunities for collaboration and networking.
And that was really, really huge for this program. One of the main really design features. Another is one size fits all. No matter what you came in with some knowledge, no knowledge, you went through the same training, didn't matter. What we really need is this idea of own your own learning. If you knew something early, some people that came in had dealership experience or they had field experience in another organization and they didn't need certain elements of the training. The new design allowed you flexibility so that if you're already familiar with an area, you didn't have to spend time listening to someone talk about it again.
And the concept of assessments is something we injected into the new training because with the 3 months, we assumed, hey, you finished the 3 months, you're good to go without stopping, checking, coaching, feedback, and now we have in-progress assessments to be sure that they really are ready. And when you do this, you also need to have remediation plans for those who aren't. So we had to incorporate all that in a new design.
Yes, so we identified a lot of areas we wanted to improve upon, what we needed to do, and let's just share a little bit about the actual program, Bonnie. So it's a 6-month learning journey. The first week is a welcome to GM, actually done in Detroit at our world headquarters. And that's a lot of onboarding, some simple stuff like getting your IDs and your passwords, but it's also setting the stage for this is what GM, this is the culture and values, these are our businesses, and this is how what your role is and how it fits into that. And then we immediately go from there to go in the dealership. They spend a full month working in a dealership, and they do things from washing cars, being a porter, to selling cars, to doing vehicle trades. And it's really, really important, this piece, because it gives them the context for all the learning that they're going to be getting over the next 6 months. And it's really a great start to give them some understanding of a dealership operation.
Yep. They then get to work with another district manager who's more seasoned and actually now travel into dealerships and see how the district manager does his or her job with the dealer. We then bring them back in to Detroit to have them reflect on what they've just done, because we're building a lot of reflection into this learning journey as well, so they have time to sit and think about what they've done and share their learnings with their peers. Then we send them for another week to meet their other customers. So they've got the dealers as a customer and then the end consumer as a customer, and in this case they sit at the Customer Assistance Center and take customer calls and hear customer issues and learn how General Motors resolves customer issues.
Yeah, and it's so important because at the end of the day, it's all about the customer, and we need to make sure that they understood the customer, hear the customer issues we're having, and that's just going to help them no matter what they do in the organization. We then sent them out, and this is a big piece, over 9 weeks. They actually go either in region or they stay at the home office, and they're actually working within a team. And this is a core of the training program. So each week they're given a topic. So instead of learning through lecture-based, there's a topic that they have to learn. And they're given a learning guide or a study guide that week, and they have to answer questions or find out information. And the way they do that is they have to go identify and find the subject matter expert to find out the information. And what that is doing is a couple things. One is it's certainly owning your own learning. If you already know it, you don't have to do that. But more importantly, it's building that network. You have to go out and meet these people who you're going to rely on once you got on your job to actually support you on a daily basis. So it really, really helps in building a network. At the end of each week, there is a virtual classroom session, virtual training session, where they can talk about what they learned, any challenges they faced. So there's a lot of coaching and mentoring going on in the middle of this in between, and this goes on for 9 weeks. They come back after that and they do another check-in. They talk about their experiences, reflect on their experiences, and then they get ready for the next journey.
Right, and while they spent that 9 weeks focusing on the sales side of the business, they spend the next set of their training is regarding the after sales, the service side of the business. And they have the same guided learning there with the study guides and the check-ins and the webinars after each week to make sure they're on track there.
Right. And then they come in finally for their final DM check-in, where again they reflect, they debrief, they talk about their role play, and then there's a final assessment, which we're going to be talking about, to assess are they ready to go out into the field. And then they transition to, and then the final week they transition to the role. They go out, they spend time with the zone manager, meet the dealers, meet the zone teams, and then they're off and running.
Yeah, that assessment, Chris, is really two parts. There's a operational side where we have a proctored session where they are watched to be sure that they can navigate all the General Motors systems.
Right.
They're given a series of case study problems, and they have to go find the right system, find the right report, find the answer for a specific dealer. So we leave knowing that they are really fluent in the systems. But then there's that whole strategic side, and that's a harder one to test for. And so we have developed a capstone project there that they are given a whole dealer situation, and they have to create a whole dealer contact scenario and put
really
together
a case
action
study.
plans. It truly is. It's almost like a master's program case
It
study.
absolutely is. In some of your MBA programs, the Harvard case studies, this is pretty much what it is.
Yep.
So we think this is great, but the question is, Bonnie, was it worth it? Was the extra 3 months worth it to the organization?
Right, because there's the cost of the training and there's the cost of not having these people in the field. So Chris charged me with, Bonnie, go measure this. And we put together a measurement plan for it to compare people that went through the 3-month program with people who went through the 6-month program to see if the 6-month folks were able to grasp the business better, were they more confident, and were they more proficient sooner, actually.
Right.
And the plan consisted of two things. One was that skills assessment, that proctored element, and then there was a zone manager assessment of their actual performance.
And so what did we see? What did we learn?
Well, what we learned was that the 6-month people did better. But in a nutshell, we tested the 3-month people after they'd been on the job a year, because that's the timing of the study. And so after 12 months, 3 months in training plus 12 months on the job,
months,
so
right.
15
months, yeah.
Only 75% of them were passing. And you can see for the 6-month program, our first wave had 92% passing, the next wave had 100% passing, and this is just after 6 months of training. They haven't even been in field yet. So even without the practical experience, they are going in already with a solid foundation of the nuts and bolts of the business.
Right. So this talks about this assessment side, but in your measurement plan you talked about a strategic side as well. So
right. We talked to zone managers who had district managers that went through both the 3-month and the 6-month program and asked them to compare these folks. We said, how prepared was this district manager for their first assignment? And we said, after the first month. And the 3-month program folks, the district manager said, well, they were kind of a 5 out of 10. You can see that for the 6-month people on their first month on the job, they were at a 7.8. And then we asked, how satisfied are you today? And what we're really seeing here is that after 1 month on the job, the 6-month people are operating at comparable proficiency to the 3-month people after 15 months on the job. So what that gives us is an acceleration of time to proficiency of 8 months, which is outstanding, given that the need for good people was so intense, but they needed people who were ready. Right. And Chris, you also said, well, what about an ROI on this?
ROI, yes, ROI, the classic that all the learning organizations are going after. Well, I don't have the number here, but with very conservative estimates, we estimate the ROI about 60% based on what it costs to the program and the return we get in terms of the district manager's time and the zone manager's time, even, that they don't have to spend training the person as they come out, because it's really a time saver for them. So a very conservative estimate is a 60% ROI. And this really goes back to that original thing about the tension between now versus when they're ready. This really now is some strong data to support giving that extra time to make sure they're ready, because in the long run it pays off.
And Chris, when we think about being ready, we think about the credibility of this new hire with the dealer. Mm-hmm. And if we put somebody who is kind of really green with the dealer and they create an initial bad first impression, it's really hard to overcome that. We're sending these people out now and they're creating an initial good first impression. So they're actually able to better work with the dealer right out of the gate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'd like to end by just summarizing what we learned, and hopefully that you can take that back, and if you have a challenge, similar challenge you're facing in your organization, maybe you can take some of the learnings that we had and apply them and maybe shortcut and don't go through some of the same mistakes that we made. Number one is understand the trade-offs between speed to launch and speed to proficiency. We just talked about that. Don't always fall trap to the getting something out there as quick as you can. It's really about speed to proficiency.
Number two is focus on performance. What they need to do on the job, not just what they need to know. You can't make it just an information dump.
Select SMEs who can relate their knowledge to the job requirements. Again, this is so important. So many SMEs, get up there and they just tell everything that they know about it, but that's not what the learners need. They need to know the pieces to help them do their job. So have SMEs that can help translate that knowledge to their job requirements.
Fourth is put that learning in context, and this is just a good instructional principle. And we had that fortune of putting them in the dealerships, on the call centers, traveling with district managers, and making everything so relevant to their job.
The fifth is probably one of the most important, I think, is provide opportunities to make connections and build a network. Their learning is not going to stop after this 6 months, and they're going to need that network to continue to be successful in their job. This is probably one of the most important things, is to build that network and provide opportunities and enablers to do that.
And sixth, let them own their own learning. Let them own their development. Give them the opportunity to explore and find out questions that are important to their own development.
And finally, measure progress and provide feedback throughout. We talked about the end measurement, the assessment, how important that is to make sure they're ready to go out, but measure progress throughout the program. Every week we had check-ins with the home office. We had check-ins with mentors and coaches to make sure that they were getting it, that they were learning, and to help them work through any challenges that they had. And to end, and here's a happy picture of a cohort that finished and passed their assessment, and they're ready to go out into the field. So we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Happy onboarding.
Happy onboarding.